Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
You know what? Let's geek out about music for a second. I realized some time ago that, in 40 years from now, 40 years from 2017, in the year 2057, none of the popular bands today will be remembered. You could take the number one band right now on the billboards, fast forward 40 years, nobody will have a clue who they were. Nobody. They won't matter. I promise you that. Think of any modern band that is chart topping right now, that has had success in the last, 2 or 3 years. Whoever's been at the top of their game for the last, maybe even, I don't want to say decade, but for the past few years, turn on the radio, any random band you hear on the top 40 rock station will not even be a thought in 40 years. Nobody's going to remember them. But guess what? Guess who you're still going to remember 80 years after the band was created? For instance, AC/DC. We will still have classic rock, quote unquote, in 2057. In 2057, you're still going to hear some flying car blasting, "Highway to Hell!" You're going to hear it. Bands like that, bands from the 70s, classic rock bands, Prince, other pop artists, any of those classic pop, rock, R&B, whatever you name it, from the 70s, even going into the 80s, even some from the 90s, and of course going back 60s, 50s-ish, Elvis. They are still going to be here, firmly implanted in our psyche 40 years from now. I promise you. You can ask a 10-year-old kids will still know Highway to Hell, Dirty Deeds, TNT. I'm just using AC/DC as an example. Those bands will stand the test of time. Modern bands will not. There's no way a band like Sick Puppies or whatever, or Cage the Elephant, they won't be a speck. Even people who listen to those bands now won't remember them in 40 years. They will be a distant memory, if anything. Like, remember Sick Puppies? I think that sounds about familiar. No way. Be like, you remember AC/DC? Heck yeah, I remember AC/DC. TNT! Dynamite! Yes. They will be around forever. 100 years from now, you will remember those bands. And that's amazing and sad to me. It's because I saw a recent video on YouTube where kids were reacting to AC/DC. That's what spurred this whole thing. And these little kids, they're like 7 to 13 years old. Almost all of them are like, yeah, I've heard this before. My parents played this. Some of them, even like 9-year-old girl, was singing the lyrics to TNT. She knew the lyrics. That's not going to happen in 40 years with any modern band right now. I promise you. And I will eat my words when I'm an old man in 2057, sitting in my little hovering chair. It's not even a wheelchair. It's just a hovering chair, a little drone that I'm sitting on, listening to whatever music device we listen to music with, listening to classic rock, listening to Freebird, listening to Voodoo Child, blasting it. Grandpa, turn down that classical music. Shut up. You know what this music is. Don't act like you don't like it, and just crank it to 11 and rip the freaking knob off. That is not going to happen with bands today in 2017. There's no way. There is no way. And it's not even so much these modern bands' fault. It's not that they're terrible in comparison to greats like Lynyrd Skynyrd, the Beatles, AC/DC, and those types, those cats, Prince, Michael Jackson. It's not that they're terrible in comparison to those artists. It's just that there's so much of it. There's just so much music these days, and it's mediocre. Nothing stands out. Very rarely will something stand out. And even the ones that stand out, once every decade, when you have some sort of standout band, there's just so much, and 99.9% of it is mediocre. Whereas classic rock bands, shoot, most of it was awesome. Rush, Kansas, Boston. Oh my gosh, rock and roll band. I don't care. I don't care what music you stack it up today. What song you put on Boston, you put on rock and roll band. That is one of my favorite freaking songs of all time. Holy crap. I should just play the song here. Just let it rock. I'll play a little bit of it. Jeez, you're not going to hear that. You don't hear anything like that today. Guitar riff-driven rock is dead, and has been dead since, I was going to say since grunge, but grunge basically brought the guitar back from the 80s of synthesis and keyboards and electronic drums and freaking... why am I blanking out on his name? Oh, no. Shoot. Phil Collins. Phil Collins. I can hear it coming in the air tonight, which is not a bad song. And that song will still be remembered in 40 years. I don't even like Phil Collins, but he'll be remembered in 40 years. Phil Collins might have been considered... He's not even a lot of people's favorite, but he'll still stand the test of time more than any band today. Guaranteed. I'm trying to think of modern bands, and maybe you guys can think of some. Maybe you're telling yourself right now that, I'll just use Cage the Elephant, for example. Maybe you're thinking, I'll remember them in 40 years. I don't think so. I think even if you're a diehard fan, even if you're the person who follows them around the country and stands front row at every show, at every tour date, every tour stop, 40 years? I don't know. They might be a distant memory. You might have to blow the dust off I was going to say a scrapbook. There's not going to be scrapbooks in 40 years. You're going to find an old hard drive with all your pictures on it. Not even that. Everything that you're taking pictures on with your cell phone, with your smartphone, probably going to be lost. I don't know. Maybe you'll have a cloud storage account for 40 years, and maybe you'll keep the stuff on there. We can geek out about photography now, and I'll say that. I'll say this to wrap up the segment. And it's kind of why, I don't know how it ties in necessarily, but it does tie in. Before Pro Tools and before computers, computerized recording, before linear editing, bands were committed to tape. That means every take a musician took, every take a band took, committed to tape. You can't just go back and keep redoing guitar parts until you got it perfect. I mean, you can, you could, but you couldn't. Either way, it was a more permanent way to record. So bands came in there well rehearsed, and you had them laying down tracks like Rock and Roll Band by Boston, capturing all that energy, because the band had to do it almost virtually live and capture all that energy to tape, because you can't go back and just easily fix it in the mix. You couldn't do that. There was no auto-tune, nothing. So to tie that in with photography and taking pictures with your camera versus, I'd say maybe I was one of the last generation to use 35 millimeter film. Using film forces you to take better pictures because you have to think about every picture you take. Versus with a phone, with a digital camera, it's just snap, 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 snap. You can take 1,000 pictures. More than that, doesn't matter. You don't have to, there's not much thought going into composition or lighting or framing when you can just take 100 pictures of the same thing in rapid succession and then choose the best one. Nope. With film, you have to really be thoughtful about what you're taking a picture of. So bands had to be really thoughtful of what they were recording, whereas now, we'll fix it in the mix. And I know about that because I've been in audio engineering for quite a while, and I'm trying to retain the old school method with modern technology. If someone I'm recording doesn't do a take, if it doesn't capture the soul, the presence, the emotion, then they'll have to redo it again. I'm sorry. There's only so much you can fix in the mix, and that is not a crutch you ever want to lean on when you're mixing music on a computer now. Oh, don't worry about that take. We'll fix the intonation in the mix. That's not a good laurel to rest on. So yeah, I just wanted to geek out about music a little bit. And I bet you so many of you listening right now are just saying, yes, yes, yes. You're throwing up the horns and saying, dang it, Johnny, you nailed it on the head. That is pitch perfect. There'll be more Geek Therapy Radio to come. I am Johnny Hemberger. We are done with segment 1, geeking out about music. We'll see what the rest of the show covers. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned. Go like Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. We will be right back. Rock on! Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hemberger, and I've got another segment of nerdiness for you, or geekiness. I should use the word geek because this is a show for geeks. And right now, I'm geeking out about the Steam Summer Sale. And for you guys and gals that don't know what Steam is, all two of you, Steam is a service for the PC and also Mac, where you can buy video games and software. For instance, the audio software I use to put my show together is called Cakewalk Sonar. And I got Cakewalk Sonar. It's actually pretty cool. I got Cakewalk Sonar on Steam. It's producer edition, whatever. It's the highest tier of Cakewalk. I've been using Cakewalk since 2003, 2002. I was trained and certified with Pro Tools. Pro Tools is the industry standard audio production software. Every album you've heard in the past 20 years, I'd say 15. Actually, yeah, maybe 20 years or so. I forget exactly when Pro Tools came out, but 97, 98, maybe a little bit before then. Anyways, it's all done on computer now for the past, almost 20 years. So the industry standard audio production software is Pro Tools. Like I said, I got trained in it and certified and went to school and all that kind of stuff. But I still prefer Cakewalk Sonar. I'm perfectly comfortable using Pro Tools, but still, like I said, Cakewalk has my heart. So anyways, Cakewalk Sonar, out of the gate for the top tier version of the software, it's several $100s. And Steam offers this neat thing with Cakewalk, at least, and I'm sure with other very expensive titles, where it's kind of like rent to own. So a few years ago, I went on Steam and I bought Cakewalk Sonar, and it was like $20 a month or something like that. But once you pay it, you own it, and you get all the updates for it for free for the next couple years, a couple years. Anyway, so let's say the software was $500. You don't have to pay $500 right up front, and this is nothing like a credit card or anything like that. It's just you pay a monthly fee for it, and then once you've paid off the software, you own it. So that's how I got Cakewalk Sonar legitimately. I used to use Cakewalk, I think it was called Home Studio. It was the very cheap, it was like $30. I think I bought the disc at Best Buy. That's the other thing, is with Steam, there's no discs, there's no CDs, there's no DVDs, there's no Blu-rays. And I would argue that nowadays on PCs, an optical disc drive is almost obsolete. Not totally obsolete, but almost obsolete. When's the last time you burned a CD? I should play the Jeopardy music right here. When's the last time you burned a CD? When's the last time you've needed to? I have archived some things to DVDs recently. But on the most part, you're putting your MP3s and whatnot on your phone. I was going to say iPod, but even iPods now are almost obsolete because everything is on your phone. Your phone is your iPod. Your phone is your MP3 player. So, Steam. Why I brought that up is now is the time for Steam's infamous summer sale. And it's a very peculiar time of year for me and for a lot of other gamers out there, I guess, in that, for instance, I'm looking at it here on my little computer. I'll talk about my little computer here in a second because I just got it this week and it's amazing. And I've been waiting for it for months. Anyways, looking at Steam here on my little computer, and, for instance, I'm looking at Shadow of Mordor, which is a very popular game. And it's usually, like, I guess most recently it's $20, but now it's marked down to $4. And you can find stuff like that all over the place. There's games and software that might be $60, but during the Steam sale, it's marked down like 80%, 90%, 60, 70%. Like, they are good deals. Now is the time to purchase your software. Like, if you want video editing software, go to Steam now and get it at a steep discount. If you want audio editing software, photo editing software, go on Steam and get those things at a steep discount. Games at an unbelievably drastic cut in price. So here's the rub with it. Here's why it's an interesting time of year for me and anybody else who plays games or purchases software. Let me move the mic a little bit. It's almost counterproductive to have games especially this cheap. Software, yes, that's a valuable thing that you can use almost every day. So if there's $200 software that's marked down to $80, let's say, for instance, you should get it during the Steam sale. That's very useful. But video games at that cheap of a price isn't as useful. And I know it sounds weird for me to say that, but like I've mentioned before, I only really play one game now. I've only been really playing one game for the past 2 years, and that's Rocket League. So what happens for me and a lot of gamers is we'll go on Steam and we'll buy all these other games at a steep discount. So our library of games, we have dozens and dozens of games. Some people have hundreds of games. But when do you play them? I know that's an issue for me. I'll buy 2 or 3 games during a Steam sale, but I'll never play them. It doesn't matter what I spent on them. I still hardly ever, if I do ever play them. I got the whole BioShock trilogy. I haven't even played like 20 minutes of the first BioShock, let alone BioShock 2, let alone BioShock Infinite. I haven't spent any time with those games, and I bought the whole thing. I forget what I spent on that trilogy. It wasn't a ton of money. Maybe it was like $20. But I haven't played any of it. I bought Street Fighter V. I've mentioned this early on in an early show. I spent over $100 on Street Fighter V in February or March of 2016. I was stoked because I love Street Fighter. Street Fighter is my game. I actually got pretty good at Street Fighter. I used to go around the city and play in tournaments and everything. So when they announced Street Fighter V, I was super excited about it. Then I saw it and it was a broken game when I bought it. And I just got tired of the fan service. Fan service means it's just, well, in Street Fighter's case, like it introduced, very scantily clad female fighters and whatnot, characters. And I'm like, what's the point? It's one thing if they introduce characters like that and the game is good. Like the actual mechanics of the game are good and engaging and challenging. It's one thing to know that, hey, this game isn't going to be that great, so let's just put some eye candy in there. That's stupid. That's really stupid to me. So anyways, I spent $100 on Street Fighter V, and I've got less than an hour in it, since I got it a year and a half ago. So that's my rub with the Steam sale. The Steam sale is awesome. Don't get me wrong. It is an awesome thing that happens once a year, and you can get games and software at ridiculously cheap prices for how long does it go? A month or two? Maybe just a month. I don't know for sure. But if you're like me, you find your games library bloats, and I don't know how many games I have, like 60 or so games, under 100 games, but I don't play I don't play 98% of them. So it's like, why did I buy all these things? It's less special. I would rather spend $60 on one game that I would play all the time than $60 on 20 games that I never play. So it's kind of like be careful what you wish for. When we were kids, we were thinking, oh, it'd be so great to have hundreds of video games. Now as an adult, you're like, I got too many games. I don't even know what to choose. Anyways, we'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. You guys think about that. Go like Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. I see you guys liking the page more and more every week. Thank you very much. We will be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio GTR. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. Johnny Hamburger still. There's nobody sitting in this week. It's still me. It's still me with you. Put your ear right close to the speaker. Let me whisper sweet geeky nothings. Game Boy. Commodore 64. Record player. Tube amp. Okay. Are you sufficiently sizzled? So I mentioned in the previous segment that I got a new computer this week, a new laptop. Actually, you might call it a palm top. Palm tops have not been a thing for several years now. What with your smartphone becoming so powerful, laptops becoming so ubiquitous, palm tops, there just wasn't really a need for them, wasn't really a market for them. But anyways, that's what I got, a new palm top. It's called an ultra portable PC. And it is called the GPD Pocket. Now, what's so special? Well, okay. I bought this thing months ago. When I say bought it months ago, it's a crowd-funded product. You know, you've heard of GoFundMe and Indiegogo and whatnot. I went on Indiegogo, and I had heard about this device, and so I went on Indiegogo, and I was like, I have to back this thing. I have to invest in this thing to make sure that they reach their goal and they actually produce this product. So GPD Pocket, or GPD, the company GPD, is Chinese, and they've made a couple devices prior that have been very successful. They made an Android gaming device. They made a Windows gaming device, a clamshell design, and they've done well. So when the GPD Pocket was announced, I backed it, and they needed, what do they need to meet their to meet their goal? I think they needed like $250,000 to meet their goal to start production on it, and they wound up getting like $3.5 million. That means thousands of people forked over $400, and they smashed through their goal of $200,000 and made $3.5 million, which means yes, the project is a go. They were going to start producing them. So they did. And when you back a project, you get these emails once in a while of the company saying, "Hey, here's where we're at in the process." So every email I would get, I'd be all excited. Oh, where are they at? Where are they at in the production process? They say, "Okay, well, we've made revisions to the prototype. Here's prototype 1. Oh, that looks so sweet. You know, a couple months later, here's revisions to prototype 1. Here's prototype 2. We've rearranged some keys on the keyboard. Oh, that's awesome." So anyways, they said, all right, we're going to start shipping these in about mid-June. And they said that a month or two ago, which is when you get that update, when you back a project like this and it says, hey, we hope to ship in mid-June, take that with a grain of salt. That's likely not going to happen. Usually it's wishful thinking. But I got my device a couple days ago, which means, I think I got it. I got it June 20th. I remember it because it was like Christmas. Finally got it. So that's pretty close to mid-June. So props to GPD. With Chinese companies, it's always kind of wishy-washy and sketchy, or sketch, as the kids call it. You don't know quite what you're getting into with a Chinese company. You know, you could back the project and they send you just a load of crap. Just maybe a box full of rocks. But anyways, no, GPD has been respectable. That's one reason I backed it. And again, this is not a paid endorsement at all. This thing cost $400 to be a backer. When you invest early, you would get the device for $400. It's going to go retail for like $600. Anyway, so I finally got it, the GPD Pocket, and I'll just rattle off some specs for you. It's a 7-inch IPS screen, which is very usable. I was worried it'd be too small, but it's a very usable screen. 7-inch IPS screen, 1920 by 1200. So 7 inches, 1920 by 1200, that's a pixel density. That's one of the highest pixel densities of any product anywhere. That just means the screen is going to look real sharp. You're not going to be able to. There's no way you can see individual pixels. That means text looks real, almost like ink. There's no jagged edges. It's not low resolution. So that 7-inch screen, it's got 128 gigabytes of solid state storage, which is decent in a device this small. That's usable. It is eMMC storage, so it's not NVMe or anything like that. So the storage is fast, but it's not NVMe fast. It's not SATA fast. I think the write speed is like 30 or 40 megabytes a second, and the read speed is like 150 megabytes a second. Very usable, still faster than a normal hard drive. Those are sequential read and write speeds, by the way. So yeah, very usable. Here's the kicker, though. 8 gigabytes of RAM. When they first announced it, they said it's going to have 4 gigabytes. And, okay, that's par for the course for devices this size. 4 gigabytes. That'll let you do emails and barely watch YouTube. No, this says 8. That means I can do actual audio production work on this thing, on a device that fits in my back pocket. It may stick out a little bit, half an inch from the top of my butt pocket. I've tested it. Maybe I'll put a picture of it up on the Instagram. Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. Anyways, 8 gigabytes of RAM. That means I can do my audio production software easily. I can run Cakewalk, Sonar, or Pro Tools on there without skipping a beat. It's a quad-core Intel Atom processor, the Z8750. It's a 2-watt chip. Now, it's not going to win any awards in horsepower. It's a 2-watt processor versus the i7 I have in my desktop, which is an 88-watt processor, but I've got it overclocked, so it jumps around 100 watts or more. So scale that down to 2 watts. It's usable. It's usable, and the system is very snappy, quad-core. This is a supercomputer compared to computers, I was going to say 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's just a lot of power to have in your back pocket or in your purse or just tossed in your backpack. It is a perfect travel PC. I don't see why I would even bring my laptop anywhere. If I was going to Europe or something like that, why would I toss my my expensive laptop in my backpack? I'm going to take this thing around with me. Just a much lighter load. What do I need a PC for on vacation anyways? Except for, answering the random email and maybe doing some word processing, or I have to do a lot of audio work in my line of work. So that's why I would want a PC capable of doing such things. And to have it small enough that I can fit in my back pocket is amazing. And I've got Steam on there, so I've got my Cakewalk on there. It can video edit a little bit. Keep it within reason. You're not going to be editing Transformers on here, but it'll get the job done for some home movies. What else does it have? Mini HDMI output, so you can hook it up to, your hotel TV or an external monitor. It's got a full-size USB 3.0 port, full-size USB, and also a USB Type-C, which USB Type-C opens you up to all sorts of peripherals. It's another display output. You can connect up to 3 displays through USB Type-C. You can connect your SD card readers. It's just, you charge through it also. So you connect a hub to the USB Type-C and you have all these other connections at your disposal. Ethernet, all of that stuff. It's great. I'm blown away by this little thing. And it's all aluminum. The entire case is aluminum. It's the build quality of a Mac. It is that good. But it cost a fraction of the price. Let's say a MacBook Air is around $1,000, I believe, and this thing is like $400. The build quality is right there with it. It's solid. I'm very impressed. The keyboard, they fit a quote, it's a reduced size, but it's still a full-size QWERTY keyboard. You can actually type on it. It's actually decent to type on. You'd think it'd be so crammed and unusable. That's not the case. So yeah, this GPD Pocket is pretty amazing. I am not regretting the purchase whatsoever. It is wonderful. And all those ports I rattled off? It still has a headphone jack. It still has all those ports on it, which is many, many times the ports a MacBook Air has. A MacBook Air has one USB Type-C port. That's it. So how does a 13-inch MacBook Air, 12-inch MacBook Air, full-size laptop not have as many ports as a 7-inch laptop? This thing is tiny and is loaded out with ports so you can connect all your stuff to it. I don't know. I'm really geeking out about that. This is probably the biggest geek out I've had in the past few months. This is amazing. I'm talking about, I have it right here. I'm going to tap it against the microphone. Oh, it's magnetic. No way. That means I could like attach it to a refrigerator or a bathroom stall and watch my Netflix. Let me make sure that real quick that wasn't just the microphone's magnet. Let's see if it attaches to the microphone arm. Holy mackerel! Oh, yes. Holy crap. That is amazing. That is amazing. I just discovered that right here on the air with you. That is a genuine geek out right there. Oh my, all right, well, I gotta go, I'm way over on this segment. I'm gonna go to a commercial and I'm gonna go stick this to everything in the office. I'm gonna go to the kitchen and stick this to the refrigerator and see how that works. Why would you want to stick a tablet or something like this to a surface? It's so you can just stick it on there and watch the tutorial while both your hands are free to cook. For instance, let's say you're watching Rachel Ray cook some brownies. Well, just stick your tablet or this computer up on the fridge or up on something magnetic and just have both hands free to watch the tutorial and work on your stuff. Wow, that's awesome. Anyways, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Go like it. Go like it. I don't know if you can hear me, but like I'm looking around the room at metal stuff to stick this thing to. I'm really my nerd antenna is at full mast. So more Geek Therapy Radio to come. It's going to be a short segment. I've chewed up so much time here. So much time. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. I'll be right back in a few minutes. Holy crap, this is cool. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. Okay, so I figured out what that magnet was. Don't go sticking your GPD Pocket to refrigerators or anything. It's not going to stick. The device it's not heavy per se. It feels solid. It feels valuable, let's say. Remember that scene in Jurassic Park where Timmy picks up those night vision goggles? Cool, night vision. And the lawyer goes, are those heavy? Timmy goes, yeah. And he goes, then put them back. They're expensive. That's how this little laptop feels. Anyways, that little magnet in there is not for sticking to surfaces. It has. I've deduced that it has to do with keeping the screen when you close it, for keeping the screen securely closed. It also probably has something to do with the sensor that senses the screen is closed, perhaps. I think it's maybe just a passive magnet that keeps the screen nice and tight when it's closed. But you could still use that magnet to put a stylus there, maybe hold a metal pen, I don't know. So you'll figure out some way to use that little magnet. I got all excited for no reason, but still neat that there's a pretty powerful neodymium magnet in there. And since there's no, obviously there's no tape storage. Why would there be tape storage in a modern device? Okay, this short segment I wanted to talk about vintage. Is vintage even the right word to use for this? Your Game Boy, your old Game Boys, your Game Boy Color, your Game Boy Pocket, your Game Boy Advance, those things, Sega Game Gear, all those the portable gaming devices that me and other 30-somethings and younger have grown up with. Before smartphones, before rubbing your thumbs all over a screen, we had Game Boys, and I've got mine right here. There's a big scene around modding or modifying or making modifications to these old handhelds. And I'm going to turn my Game Boy Color on right here and tell you what I've got done to it. Let me turn on the switch. Oh, memories. Do you remember that sound? Yes, a lot of you do. You instantly got transported to the back of your parents' station wagon on a road trip, playing your Game Boy, waiting for each street light street lamp to go by to get a little further in the game because there were no backlights on these screens. You had to play under direct light. And on a road trip, that was difficult. So street lamps, that light going by, that's your only chance to play. Anyways, I digress. I'm going way down the rabbit trail. So this Game Boy Color, I've not done much to it. I've got an EverDrive GB in there, which lets me load all the games I want onto it. Games that I own. Wink, wink. But probably the coolest mod I've done to it, and all these mods are pretty cheap. So I spent $3 to get a glass replacement screen. The screens that came with these Game Boys were plastic, and they were just fine, but they get scratched up, and you can barely see what you're playing. So I got a new glass, an actual genuine glass replacement screen. And let me tell you, the clarity of this thing now is amazing. It's probably the best $3 or so that you could spend on, sprucing up your old Game Boy. And I really am out of time this week. I'm sorry. I'm going to go into more detail regarding the whole Game Boy modding scene, the whole vintage handheld modding scene, because it's really very interesting. So dust off your old Game Boys, get them out, and we're going to talk about them next week. And on the way out, thank you for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. I love all of you. You're capable of great things. Please believe that. Please know that. And do good things in this world. Do good for somebody else. Do good for yourself. On the way out, I'm going to play a little bit of music for you that will bring back some great memories. Thanks for listening. This has been GTR, Geek Therapy Radio. Oh, memories!